listing checklist. So whenever you go to list a property, whenever you have that initial meeting, you are going to want to take this with you because this is a residential real estate listing agreement, an exclusive right to sell. That means I am the only agent that will be on the selling side. There are other ways to fill this out where just different forms where everybody can sell the house if they want to, but I want to get paid, and this is the one you need to start with unless there's really an extenuating circumstance on this. So I'm going to walk you through this. It's actually pretty easy. There's a few little weird things in here that I want to point out as we go through this. So after I've sat down with my clients at a listing appointment, I'm going to talk to them saying, hey, look, we need to fill out some paperwork so that way I can prove that I was the agent on record selling your house so that way I get paid. Okay, so pretty simple. First things first, parties. Parties to this agreement are, now, and this is an account that I have right now or a client that I have, and this is their contact address. This is how I get a hold of them. This is what you need to put for any mailings, anything like this. This does not necessarily have to be the property address that we are selling. And then I need to put in my broker, which is Eric, our address, and I put my email in here so they can get a hold of me. So you want to make sure that these are how to get a hold of these people. These are the parties to the agreement. Second is the property. What property are we talking about selling? Sometimes people live here and want to sell another property that they own. So this could be different, so pay attention. And you're going to put in the legal description. So I've got the lot, the block, the actual description, what city it's in, what county it's in, and what the address is. Please remember, if I've said this once, I've said it 100 times, the address is not the legal description. The address is assigned by the post office. It is not assigned by the county in which you sell. If you need to look this up, you're going to go to the CAD. So this is a Guadalupe County. So all you got to do is Guadalupe CAD, and it'll take you right to it. It's pretty easy. I'm not connected to the internet right now to stop any interruptions, but that's all you have to do is look in the CAD, the County Appraisal District, and you'll be able to find that by either their last name or the address. Section B and C we're not going to be able to do. So now down to Section D, exclusions. The following improvements and accessories will be retained by the seller and must be removed prior to delivery of possession. This right here is the difference between chattels and fixtures. If you remember, chattels are things that do not convey with the house. This would be stuff like the couch, televisions, things that would go with you when you move naturally. This right here, the exclusions, is talking about fixtures. So this particular property right here, they told me when I went to go list, and I just asked them, guys, is there anything that is attached to this house, any fixtures that need to come with you when you leave? Because I need to put this in the MLS. This needs to be very well announced because a lot of people will make assumptions. Now, one exclusion they did have was the chandelier above, the master bathtub. Now, this is a really nice house. They happen to have a chandelier over the bathtub. The wife was in love with it. She wants to take it with her. So it's important that I make sure that I put that as an exclusion. It is excluded from the sale of this property, even though naturally it would convey. So this is just putting in there so they know that I know that that does not go with it. So anything else that is considered a fixture, I do have a video on fixtures versus chattels if you want a little more explanation on that. Is this property in a homeowners association? This one is. Once you check this box, guys, you need to get a hold of the HOA. You need to talk to them about all their covenants, restrictions, all of that, because there's more forms to fill out that I'm going to go over in a later video. But it's important that you notate this and you get this information from the client. They're going to know faster and better than you are by looking all this up. Next, we're going to insert a listing price. This is not the price that you have to stay at, but it is the price that y'all agree to start at. So I ran a CMA on this house. Like I said, it's a nice house. I mean, it's almost 6,000 square feet. It's a big house on a golf course. I ran a comparative market analysis. I sat down with Eric. I got a broker's opinion of value. We looked at the CMA, and I told him, I said, hey guys, this is the price I want to start listing this house at. It's a little bit high, according to the CMA, but it gives us a little bit of negotiation room. Next thing is the term. How long does this term last? So this lasts from July 17th to December 31st. After December 31st, if they want to back out of the contract with me, they can. It's up to them. Normally I like to put in a year here, but I know these people pretty well, so I just put in the first 6 months. And if I need to extend it later, I will. But normally I like to put a year. So I need a year to sell your house. If it's a nice house, some people don't want to give you that long. You need to discuss this with your clients to find out how long they're comfortable being in a contract with you, because this is a contract that they will sign up. Next, we're going to talk about broker's compensation. When earned and payable, seller will pay the broker, and in this example, it's 6%. This is very, very negotiable, but I need you to understand something. I am not getting paid 6% on this house. They are paying my broker 6%. And later on, I'm going to show you where I put in here in this contract how we're going to split that 6% up. So they just need to know up front that it's going to cost them 6% for me to sell this house. Some people balk, especially if it's an $850,000 house. Guys, that is a big commission. I mean, that's almost $27,000. But they need to understand that there's a lot of E&O insurance that's going to go into it. There's going to be a ton of marketing. The signs, the flyers, the online marketing, everything that I have to do to get this out. So yeah, I'm going to be spending a lot of this stuff on marketing, and then it's also my paycheck from driving to and from your house, showing it whatever I've got to do. So this right here is a percentage. This is very typical, 6%. 3% goes to me, the listing agent, and typically 3% goes to the buyer's agent. So I'm going to get 3%. They're going to get 3% for a combined of 6%. You can add in whatever you want. Some people want to pay a flat commission. Hey, I'll pay you 10 grand, period, the end. Figure out how you want to split it. It varies, but this is the most typical 6%. If you're going to put something here in line number 2, you need to speak to your broker before you enter into that, because this could get you in harm's way if you're not paying too close attention. Okay, so we're going to skip on down to the next part, other fees and reimbursable expenses. This right here, you need to be very, very, very careful about how you fill this out, and very detailed. Some people tell you, hey, I insist that you use this photographer. Well, that photographer cost $500 more than the photographer that I use. So normally I pay $200, you're asking me to pay $700. I'm going to need you to reimburse me for that because I'm not built into that. That's just an example. Normally I don't put anything in here because they don't know how to market their house, so they're usually not real specific about it. But sometimes there's just other fees or reimbursable expenses. Again, if you start to put something in here, you need to speak to your broker, because that's could be a little bit sticky, and you want to make sure that you fill that out correctly. The next portion that you need to figure out is the protection period. The protection period means that time starting the day after this listing ends and continues for fill in the blank, the sale of any simple fee interest in the property, or fee simple interest in the property, will be together for this contract. So what this means, guys, is this one right here says that on December 31st, we end. The reason why you want a protection period is because what if you bring a contract to the table on December 15th and they don't close by the 31st? You want to be protected beyond that, and that's what this is saying. So 30 days, if it doesn't close until after that, then I still get paid. That's what you want to make sure is you're protecting yourself. I typically do 30 days. Sometimes I'll go as high as 60. Usually, the correlation that I do is the shorter this period is, the longer I want this one. I usually don't go over 60 days. That's just my personal preference. Again, 30 is a great starting place because normally it doesn't take more than 30 days. So an example, in this previous example, what if somebody signs a contract on December 30th and there's no way they're going to close the next day? So I need protection, and usually it doesn't take longer than 30 days to close. Okay. Next thing you fill out is all amounts payable to the broker are paid in cash in what county. So Guadalupe County is where our brokerage office is. It's where the house is. That's fine. Most of the time I put Guadalupe County because that's where White Line's world headquarters is. So I want you to pay me in Guadalupe County. Sometimes if you have a listing somewhere else, if you have questions about that, where you're at, I usually do Guadalupe or Bexar County because that's where I live and that's where I work a lot. And you want to make sure you put a county in there so that where they're not paying you in some odd, like, oh, I'll pay you in, Collin County, which is way up north in Dallas, and then you got to go find your money and go get it. This is just to kind of protect you from chasing your money all over the place. Listing services. So this one right here, and if you notice, it says you need to check 1 or 2 only. Okay, so number one, broker will file this listing with one or more multiple listing services, the MLS, according to the following. The broker will file the listing with one or more by earlier time required by MLS or 5 days after the date of this listing begins. So basically, I'm going to get all this information and I'm going to put it in the MLS. And I think it's important that it says one or more because this particular house right here, I honestly think I'm going to get a buyer out of Houston. So I'm going to be listing in the Houston area of realtors as well, along with Central Texas and along with Sabor. That's kind of because this house is kind of in the middle of all three of those. I want to make sure I get as much exposure to this as I possibly can. So we need to make sure that I let them know I'm going to be filing this in one or more MLSs. That's just the public way. That's the way most people are going to do it. Now, sometimes they say do not file this in the MLS until blank days after this begins. I honestly don't know why anybody would not want you to put it in the MLS, but if they say, hey, look, you can have this listing, but Joe and Susie and Frankie, my friends, are going to come look at it, and I want to give them the first right, so you got to wait 20 days before you put it in the MLS and open it up to the public. Okay, that's fine. So the first check is I will put it in the MLS. The second check is the broker will not file this listing in the MLS. Again, I don't know why anybody would choose that because the MLS is your strongest marketing tool and you pay a lot of money for it. So make sure they understand that this is a strong marketing tool. They should let you do that. It just gives you the open exposure. Okay, now the listing content, you could read through all this if you want, but it doesn't really go through the scope of this video. Next is access to the property. So do I have the right to come into your property? And I need you to tell me that I do. So right here, the first one is scheduling companies. They are going to want to know who is coming into my house and how are you tracking this. Now, centralized showing service or showing time are the main services. Showing time just bought out centralized showing service, so now it's showing time. But you want to be able to say, we are tracking this through a third party so they know every single realtor that comes in and out, exactly what time, because people tend to leave when their house is shown. Well, they're leaving all of their worldly possessions for some stranger to come into the house, and they want to know that you are doing this, and they want to make sure it's okay. So you're going to have to tell them, hey, I'm going to be using a scheduling company, showing time. Depending on where you're at, they vary, but it will be tracked, and here's the name of it if you want to go look it up. Okay, going on further, this describes what a key box is or a lock box. I'm sure you've heard. Most of the time with a listing, I want to be able to put a lockbox on it because I want the buyer's agent to go over there and not feel weird about having me there like it's some pressure situation. So I need to make sure they understand what a lockbox is or a key box is. I want them to know how they work, who's going to get the number, when they're going to get the number. Is it a Bluetooth? Is it a digital lockbox? Is it a combination lockbox? You need to have this discussion with them and make sure that they feel okay. And then you need to ask the question, am I authorized to place a key box on your property? They can tell you yes or no. It's really convenient if they say that you are allowed. If they say it is not, then that means you're going to have to go over there and unlock the door every single time somebody wants to see it. As we go further forward, cooperations with other brokers. If we have another MLS participant, a broker that has MLS access through Sabre that comes and buys the house, if the other broker represents the buyer, I will give them 3 of the aforementioned 6%. So it's a flat 6, it's not 6 plus 3. And I explained to them, hey guys, it's fair. We do 50-50, okay? I'm going to get 3, they're going to get 3 if they're an MLS participant. If it's a sub-agent, which I'm going to do a whole nother video on sub-agents, I'm only going to pay them 1%. It's a long story, I'll explain that later. Non-MLS brokers, if they don't have Sabor, but they are still a registered real estate broker in the state of Texas, then I'm still going to pay them 3%. To me, it's only fair. Some people have qualms about that. Usually this is pretty standard for me. Intermediary status. Okay, we've talked about intermediary. There's videos about intermediary. You did this in school. They need to understand that yes, they can do intermediary, or no, they cannot do intermediary. I highly encourage intermediary because I firmly believe that white line agents are the best agents in the world. And I want them to know that if we have another white line agent that wants to represent the buyer in this transaction, they are going to have that buyer is going to be well represented, and I'm going to be very, very fair during this process. But I need them to understand what that means. That means that me and somebody else both work for White Line. We're not going to talk about you. We are simply going to negotiate the deal. Are you okay with that? In my experience, most people are. Some people feel weird about that. They say, no, we are not going to allow that. If they say no, you have to respect that and you have to go with their wishes. Going down to the next things to fill out. Broker is authorized to listing this on the internet without limitations. So if you check something here, you're limiting this. Some people don't want it displayed on the internet. What does that mean? A lot of times they use IDX software to pull stuff out of the MLS and put it on websites like realtor.com, zillow.com, my own personal websites, whitelinecolin.com, corringtonrealestate.com. If some people don't want it on the website. I don't know why, but if they don't, you have to respect those wishes. Seller does not want the address of the property displayed on the internet. Again, you need to make sure they understand that, hey, I'm putting this on here. I do want the address because if somebody wants to drive by, I want them to drive by and see the neighborhood. Some people don't. I don't want a bunch of random people driving by my house. Freaks me out. So again, I didn't check anything here because I don't need to. Okay. Moving forward, broker is authorized to market the property with the following financing options. So they will tell you, we are open to owner financing this out. Okay. Some of these, if they're Texas Veteran Land Program, you need to call your loan originator and find out if the house is eligible for all of these. Some of these, it's probably not going to work conventional. You just talk to your loan originator. They will tell you. And other just means any other kind of financing. So sometimes that's a kind of a combination of the two. Some people will owner finance part, take cash for part, whatever they want to do. So that's what I check there. This is best to talk to the RMLO before you sit down with them to find out what they are eligible for. Moving on. Seller representations. Just getting to the blank. Seller is current and not delinquent on all loans. Financial obligations related to the property, including but not limited to mortgage, home equity loans, home improvement loans, homeowner association fees, and taxes, except, please tell me now if you are behind on any bills that would cause a problem in selling this house. If you are behind on your mortgage, you need to put it in here. If I owe the HOA $100 because they fined me for not putting in my trash can, you need to put that in here because that's going to show up on the title search, and you want to make sure you are aware of it and that the buyers are aware of that because it could create problems. So you need to ask it. It's a hard question. In my experience, 9 times out of 10, everybody's caught up. If they are behind, you may need to say, hey, look, we need to look at maybe short selling this, or maybe it's a cash only transaction, or maybe I need to disclose stuff in the MLS to make sure people are aware. Section F. Seller is not aware of any liens or encumbrances against the property except. Some people will take a second mortgage or any other kind of lien or encumbrance on the property. Hey, my brother loaned me $10,000, but I had to put my house up. That needs to be disclosed. Even though it's not technically a loan, it's kind of a personal thing. Guys, these will get you in trouble. You need to make sure that your clients are very honest with you about this because when you go to sell that property, things will come up and it can get hairy. Again, most of the time, nobody has any liens that they're aware of. And if they aren't aware of it, it should show up in the title search. But if they are aware, you need to write that down here. Also, last section part here, the name of any employer, relocation company, or entity that provides benefits to the seller when selling the property is. So let's say they work for some big corporation and the big corporation says, hey, we are going to help you sell this home by doing such and such, or we are going to relocate you, or whatever it might be. You need to put the name of any employer. So just put the name, Amazon.com, it doesn't matter. Just put the name of the employer that's going to help with selling the property. Just because we want to disclose everything we can. Moving on to our next section, any special provisions. Again, guys, this is a legal document. Okay, if you put something in here, you are basically practicing law. So if you are putting anything in here, you need to speak to your broker because this can get you in trouble if you don't word things correctly. So don't put anything in here unless you've talked to somebody. Next, addenda and other documents. Okay, first of all, addenda that are part of this listing and other documents the seller may need to provide. Okay, I've got to give them an IABS right out the gate, so that's already checked. Okay, so they should already have that in their possession. The seller's disclosures. I take that with me to the listing appointment and I say, hey, I need you to fill this out. I'm also going to check that box. And you're going to go down these addendums, going through the whole thing, and make sure that if they need to fill this form out, you need to check it off. Hey, by the way, do you have a septic tank? Because if so, I need you to fill out the information on on-site sewer facility. Check. Are you trying to keep the mineral rights? Or whatever it might be, guys. There's all kinds of different forms in here. Read through them. There's videos on every single one of these forms, or there will be if there's not already. And make sure you do this and fill it out. And O, of course, is the others, right? So if there's some form that's not listed here, which very well could be. So fill those out. Moving on to our next section. The seller is a foreign person as defined by federal law. This comes up very seldomly. Here in South Texas, probably a little bit more than the rest of the United States because they could be a Mexican citizen. They could be a Canadian citizen. If they are a foreign person, you need to check that they are a foreign person because the title company has to take this transaction a little bit differently when it comes to withholding any gains on the property. So you need to make sure you find out if they are or are not a foreign person. Simply ask the question. It's not your job to dig into it, but they need to be honest with you because this does have tax implications. Then we're going to put the very last part of this thing. We're going to put our broker's printed name, his license number, and then we're going to put in my name because as an agent of the broker, I can bind him to an agency agreement. That was all in your agency class when you took your real estate license. You can bind your broker to an agency agreement, and this is what I'm saying. Eric's my broker, but I'm signing him because technically, I do not own this listing. Eric does. My broker owns this listing. Now, maybe my broker wants to sign every one of these. Now, and I know Eric doesn't want to. You can enter him into this as long as you know what you're doing and you've checked it out with him and let him know what's going on. But I'm going to check this one. I am the broker's associate, and I'm signing on behalf of the broker. So I'm putting my name down here. I'm going to sign and date. I did this whole thing through a DocuSign, so all that was filled out. And then I need both of the sellers, if there's two people on the property or just one, to sign as well. So I can enter Eric into this agency agreement. So it's pretty straightforward when it comes to filling these forms out. Just take your time. Try not to rush through this. This is important information that you need to make sure you have filled out correctly because it can come up later. So Texas Real Estate form number 1101 to fill out the exclusive right to sell. You should do this as the listing. And again, guys, as always, if you have any questions, reach out.